Welcome to the Learning for Legacy show with me, your host, Afam Onyenakala. This is all about the concept of making generational wealth understandable, practical, and accessible. I'll be exploring a range of topics and sharing conversations, interviews, and more. Because what good is building wealth if we don't build the people? Welcome everyone to another edition of Learning for Legacy. Sometimes we don't do well because we don't feel well. And sometimes we don't feel well because of the beliefs we've either internalized about ourselves or about the environment around us. Generational wealth begins first as an inside job before it manifests itself externally. So wealth, again, is derived from the Old English word weal, which translates to mean either welfare or well-being. Therefore, generational wealth and the derivative of success can be achieved from the accumulation of being well. So when we consider that wealth is the accumulation of quantifiable resources, one of those resources I will focus on is the mind. Now, if the brain is a physical organ, but the mind is an invisible resource, how then can something invisible be considered a resource? I'll give you an example. When you pass through airport customs, one of the first questions they often ask you is, do you have anything to declare? Now, this is obviously to establish if you have any physical items you may need to pay duty on. Otherwise, you would say, I have nothing to declare. However, if your name was Lewis Latimer, the inventor of the carbon light bulb filament, that invisible idea in your mind would be worth millions. And so many of us walk through customs every day with unrealized ideas and beliefs worth millions that are never declared. I mean, how hilarious is that? So going back to the example of Lewis Latimer, his invention proves that the invisible world is the source of physical realizations. These concepts in his mind contributed to the physical electrification we all experience and benefit from today. So there are three uses of the mind to develop a positive mental attitude as a springboard to success. These three uses of the mind are, number one, the conscious mind, number two, the subconscious mind, and number three, the superconscious mind. The first one, the conscious mind. This is the part that deals with comprehension and reasoning effectively. This is where our short-term memory exists. Now, the second part of the mind is the subconscious mind. Now, this is the part of the mind where we keep our beliefs and we have our assumptions. And this is essentially where our long-term memory is kept. The third use of our mind is the superconscious mind. Now, this part of the mind is effectively what we consider to be the spirit of a person. This is where ultimately the finite part of us and the infinite part meet. Now, what I'm going to do here is look at how the thoughts that we focus on have a lot to do with our positive mental attitude towards success. So I'm going to look at these three uses of the mind and we'll go on a little journey to establish what's going on here. So when we look at the words that come across our mind on a daily basis, these are effectively positive or negative thought stimuli. So if we consider the words that come across our way to be like seeds, some of them are good, some of them are bad. And effectively, what we're doing here is that by taking these words as seed, we are sowing these words into our conscious mind. And you can consider the conscious mind to be, again, as I mentioned, that short-term memory. And we are using the seeds of the words to sow into the subconscious mind. Now, we would consider the subconscious mind to be like that of the soil of the earth. This, again, is our long-term memory. So we're taking the words that come our way and we are sowing those into our long-term memory. But how does this happen? What effectively is taking place to get things to stay into our long-term memory? By taking the words and sowing them into our mind, effectively what we're doing is we are using repetition as a memory device. So by repeating words continuously, we are driving these into our long-term memory in our subconscious mind. And this is essentially where we eventually form our beliefs and our assumptions of what's going on around us. This is a massive storehouse of beliefs and assumptions. So the subconscious mind, being like the soil, it effectively doesn't care what you plant in it. It will ultimately harvest what you sow into it, which is why it's very, very important for us to choose the words that we live under, to choose the words that we decide to sow into our mind in this manner. And this is effectively what helps to determine either a positive mental attitude or a negative mental attitude. So when we also look at that third part of our mind, the third use of our mind, the superconscious mind, this is a little bit like a weather storm, effectively. This is where ideas and solutions and intuitions come to us from external stimuli. Like, how many of us have been in a situation where we receive an idea, we get a solution to a problem, we get some form of intuition that we didn't consciously think of? Where is that coming from? Now, people will look at this different ways. Either some would consider this to be from that infinite intelligence that we consider to be God, or elsewhere. And again, this is where this point of where the finite and the infinite interact. So just to recap again, one of the ways where we can affect a positive mental attitude is by choosing the words that we decide to live under and using the practicality of how repetition of certain words, thoughts, and ideas become very important to driving these things into our long-term memory. So again, we have a seed, effectively a word, which we are putting into our short-term memory, the conscious mind. And from here, we are sowing that word like seed into the soil of the subconscious mind to drive it into our long-term memory. And once these words are driven into our long-term memory, it is from here that we get the harvest of beliefs and assumptions about ourselves and about the environment around us. Thanks for listening to Learning for Legacy. To join our community or find out about what else we get up to, you can follow us on Twitter at Legacy Learning or on our website at www.legacylearning.co.uk. To access additional content or exclusives from this particular episode, please find the information within the show notes.